It's funny, I heard a quote today. I think it was Layla Hormozy said that resiliency is actually emotional regulation of how fast you get back to your
Mm,
baseline.
yep. Yep.
It's not
Hmm.
about, hey, I didn't react in the moment. Sometimes we're going to react in the moment,
Of
but it's
course, we're
how
human.
fast did I get back to that
Right.
baseline where I was strategic,
Yeah.
where I could execute. And you're so right. I see this often when people are trying to climb the corporate ladder. They go, well, they should just promote me. Once they promote me, I'll be
Right.
a leader. Once they
Mm,
promote me, I'll be a manager. Once they promote me,
yep.
I'll have influence. And I tell people all the time, you have to display that you are a leader,
Mhm.
that you can manage people, that you have influence before they're going to give you the title.
They believe that when they become the thing or have the title or the training, that creates leadership in them, and that they are leaders because of the whatever comes after their name, right? But the truth is, we become leaders prior to getting there because we learn to lead ourselves.
Welcome back to this episode of Secrets of the Career Game. So many people are trying to navigate a corporate world that is laden with secrets, cleverly hidden, and unspoken rules to a game that most employees don't even know that they're playing. On this podcast, we try to give you a peek behind the curtains and some tips and tricks to ultimately make you successful in your career and help you progress a little bit faster.
Welcome back, everyone, to another fabulous episode. Today, we have a guest who has already inspired me so much with the work that she does. I'm excited for her to share with you guys a little bit more about it. Today, we have Julie DeLucca Collins with us. She is a business strategist, she is a coach, she is focused on empowering women entrepreneurs and corporate employees to really build profitable, purpose driven businesses and successful careers. And she is the founder of Go Confidently Services, which encompasses all kinds of great work that she's doing based on confidence. The book, Confident You, she's been a TEDx speaker, she's got her own podcast. But welcome, Julie. We're so excited to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me, Kendall. It is a pleasure and honor to be here.
You talk so much about being confident and where these gaps kind of come up along the way. Why don't you talk to us about your experience that really led to you
Mm.
creating these programs? Because I'm sure, like myself, you've seen so much of this firsthand. What did that journey look like kind of from the start to where you ended up now?
You know what? One of the things that I mentioned to you earlier, for me, the work that I do is always because I'm my best client. And I do the work that I wish someone was helping me with many years ago. I'm a firstborn, I'm very extrovert. So I tend to, in some ways, have a level of confidence. But one of the things that happened many, many times as I climbed that corporate ladder is women in particular would say after I got a promotion, wow, congratulations. I wish I was that confident. And it sort of got old. And I thought, I'm not that confident all the time. I don't have it together all the time. I am a hot mess when, things are not necessarily the things that I know a lot about. I'm always a beginner first. I fail a lot. And yes, do I still show up? Do I still take the leap? Yes, that is the thing that I've become accustomed to doing. But that is, right, what allows me to practice at being more competent in something. That is the thing that allows me to, it's not fake it till you make it, but it's make it so that you can get that confidence. And that was the thing that I wanted to communicate to individuals as I left my corporate career and went out on my own, that confidence is all about the journey. You're never going to reach the destination. You're never going to get perfect or do the thing that, you think everybody has it together.
Mhm.
There's a lot of work that goes underneath. So that's how it all got started.
Julie, your story is so it runs in such a parallel to my own. I always joke the reason I became a career coach is because I was bad at my career, right? Like, and I had to learn how to be better. And I was
Yeah.
like, this would have been so much easier if someone had just told me,
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
And this common misconception that confidence is innate, right? It
Hmm.
can't be learned. It's a you either have it or you don't. It's a charisma thing. I think is such a fallacy. in my own career journey and what you're sharing about your career journey. It's just not it's not true that you are either confident or you're not. So I love that you're speaking to some of this like preconceived notions that we have about it. And you talk a lot about, your executive level clients, your founders of companies. What are some of those leadership myths, those confidence myths that you wish we would say out loud, right? Or that people would be able to learn earlier on in their journey?
Yeah, one of the things that I see a lot, even with women who may not necessarily be in the corporate environment, but are looking to grow in a new chapter of their life, is they believe that when they become the thing or have the title or the training, that creates leadership in them, that they are leaders because of the whatever comes after their name, right? But the truth is, we become leaders prior to getting there because we learn to lead ourselves. We learn to do some emotional regulation. We learn to communicate with others. We learn to really be able to strategically assess the situations. And all of these things are the components that make up a leader. But these are the things that we gain prior to arriving. And I wish more people understood that.
Yeah, it's funny. I heard a quote today. I think it was Layla Hormozy said that resiliency is actually emotional regulation of how fast you get back to your
Mm,
baseline.
yep. Yep.
It's not
Mhm.
about, hey, I didn't react in the moment. Sometimes we're going to react in the moment,
Of
but it's
course, we're
how
human.
fast did I get back to that
Right.
baseline where I was strategic,
Yeah.
where I could execute. And you're so right. I see this often when people are trying to climb the corporate ladder. They go, well, they should just promote me. Once they promote me, I'll be a leader. Once they promote me, I'll be a manager. Once they promote me, I'll have influence. And I tell people all the time, you have to display that you are a leader, that you can manage people, that you have influence before they're going to give you the title.
Oh, absolutely. And it's funny that you're bringing this up. I was actually speaking to a client earlier, and one of the examples that I was sharing with her is in one of my early, in one of the companies that I worked for very early on when I was brought on board. I did something that a lot of people, right, would kind of refrain from doing. I happened to be in the elevator at a convention for the company with the founders. And I asked them because they were giving awards and my center, the place where I was working, did not receive any awards. I said, "How do I get on stage? How do I do that?" And was it easy? Was I embarrassed? Was I hesitant? Course, all of the things that our brain will say to us. Who the heck do you think you are? Oh my gosh, these are the people who own this company. Why are you talking to them? But I wanted to, number one, understand, right, what the path was. Number two, be able to really know from the people what their expectation was. And about a year and a half, 2 years later, I got a really big promotion because I had done the thing that they told me I needed to do. And I will never forget it, even to this day, because I still keep in touch with them and in the company. That's one of the things that they would always say, that let them see that I was a leader. Let them see that I was going to step up because I was willing to, even though it was uncomfortable, say the thing, ask the thing, do the thing. And that happens a lot. And I remember even later on in the same company, we had a very successful event, and I remember the CEO. It was a different CEO, but I was with him and the founders, and they said, "Well, that was so great. You did such a great job." And I said, "Well, great. You can give me a raise." And I remember thinking, "Oh my gosh, can't believe I just said that." However, how many of us are willing, right, to say that? And
Mhm.
that's something that we need to give each other these stories so that we can see that, listen, maybe I didn't get the raise, right? But I spoke up with for myself. And my dad used to say, if you don't toot your own horn, nobody else will. And that's the one thing that with confidence, right? You're never going to feel confident enough to do it. But the more that you do it, the more comfortable you are going to be.
And there's something so important buried in what you just said, Julie, that I want to touch on, which is like nobody feels comfy
Hmm.
asking, right?
Oh, for sure.
I would argue, similar to yourself, people have told me, oh, you're so confident, you speak up. And I'm like, yeah, it's not comfortable.
No,
It doesn't
never.
come naturally. But
Yeah.
there's a mindset piece of I would rather have clarity
Hmm.
of your expectations, of what's possible for me. I would rather know than be ignorant.
Hmm.
Because if I
Yeah.
know, I can make the decision to intentionally change my behavior or not.
Hmm.
But if
Yeah.
I don't know, then I'm just fumbling around in the dark, right? I always say this is like the emu head in the sand thing. Like,
Hmm.
oh, can I get promoted this year? And people are afraid to ask. They're like, well, what if they say no? I said,
Yeah.
and it would have been a no either way. You just know about it ahead of time. And there has to be this mindset of it. It's to your point of what you said earlier, it's a learning opportunity. It's to know their expectations so that you can decide if you want to take action. It's not a rejection necessarily. And I think people get it into their heads that, like, oh, but if I ask and they say no, or if I ask and they say, hey, you're never going to be on stage, or getting on stage is really difficult, they're rejecting me. And I'm like, I don't think that's the case at all.
Yeah. It may
Yeah.
not be the right fit. And that's what people forget. When I applied to my TEDx, I applied in 2022. It was been on something that I had on my list forever. And I sent one application and got the no. And
Mhm.
surely I thought this was like so good. And it's right here in my backyard in Connecticut. And the organizers are really good friends with my really good friends. And oh my goodness, this is so great. And when I got the no, I thought, huh, okay. Now, again, this is somebody who coaches people that I'm talking about this concept.
Mhm.
And that was April, all the way 2022 finished. 2023 started, and it wasn't until probably about March that I had a friend say to me, Julie, have you been applying to TEDx? And I said, no, I got denied. He's like, you got denied from one TEDx. There's so many out there. You're
Mhm.
never going to become a TEDx speaker unless you apply. And I thought, oh, okay. So that meant going back and doing the work. It also meant understanding that it wasn't about me. And this is the other thing that most of us get wrong. Rejection at time in corporate, or even when you have clients and people say no to you, has nothing to do about you. Our brain is programmed to protect us and it's going to make us think that it's about us. But for instance, that TED talk that I applied to first, that I, pitched what I wanted to talk about, what I wanted to talk about had nothing to do with what the theme was. So it had nothing to do with me, right?
Mhm.
And that's the thing that I want to have people really keep in mind. We make it about us when it isn't about us. And even if it is, you can say, well, thank you, and move to the next thing, right?
Yeah. And it's that opportunity to continue to grow, right? Because so many people, we hit a plateau, right? Especially mid 30s. I feel like that's kind of a career sticking point for many people. And instead of saying, hey, it's not about me, hey, I need to get feedback, hey, I need to grow in these ways, we just get frustrated. And it's like banging your head against the wall, like, oh, I just hate my job or I'm just miserable. What would be your advice to people who feel like they're in that stuck point that they're like, hey, I want to get more confident. I want to continue to progress, but they
Mm.
feel like they're hitting that level where it just doesn't seem to be going their way anymore.
Yeah, it goes back to asking uncomfortable questions, whether it be uncomfortable questions of yourself or uncomfortable questions of your peers or uncomfortable questions of the people who are in leadership. It might be that you need to have a mentor. Maybe you need to have an understanding of the strategic vision for the company and what they see the role that you play in that. Because sometimes, as if we're in that middle career, we don't know the big picture for the organization. And there's layers, right, that come before you. And those layers have maybe a thought. I mean, I remember thinking this person will never want a promotion. They would never want that because they really love to be at home with their families. They're not going to want to travel. That was an assumption. And it was that person saying, hey, by the way, will you consider me for that? It yeah, of course I would consider you. And I think that that's really where we need to, if we're stuck, ask ourselves, what is the right question? And who am I asking the question from? And yes, will I be uncomfortable? Perhaps. But consider it a practice, because the more that you do this, the more that you're advocating for yourself, the more that you are learning also maybe what is the thing that I need that I don't have right now. And it's hard for us. There's a study, and I just heard about this a couple months ago and I haven't finished going through it, but it talks about how when we hear the word no, it actually activates in our brain the same parts that actually the neurons that feel pain, physical pain. So
Interesting.
we are going to avoid the word no because our body interprets it in the same way that we interpret physical pain. So knowing, right? And by the way, the more that we do something, the better we become. And it could, like you were talking about, what Leila Hamosi was talking about. Fall, be willing to fall, be willing to be a beginner and get up.
Hmm.
That's the thing that will set you apart, and people will see that in you.
Yeah. Fail fast, learn fast, for sure.
Mhm.
Right?
Indeed.
You got to
Yeah.
know what's going wrong to know how to do it the right way. And I think, especially for people who live in the traditional corporate world and even entrepreneurs who are starting new businesses, early on, your technical acumen is paramount, right? Can you do the thing well? That's true early on in your career. It's true early on in building a business. And then at some point, usually around middle management, kind of starts to shift. And it becomes less about can you technically do the thing? And can you ask difficult questions? Can you think
Yeah.
strategically? Do you understand your company's objectives? And what people fail to realize is as they're going through that transition, they're falling back on, but I know how to do this.
Yeah.
And they're
Oh,
not leaning into
100%.
what the next phase is and they get stuck, right? And I had an executive tell me this once, and I always thought this was the funniest example. He said, would you hire a doctor to perform surgery if they said, hey, I've never done that surgery before, but I promise you, if you hire me, I'll be really good at it? Probably
Yeah.
not.
Probably
I'd
not.
probably
Right?
look for the doctor that's like, hey, I've done this surgery 10 times. I've been an assistant. I worked in all these different roles. I've seen it and I've done these studies. I'm published in this paper on it. I'd love, to have responsibility over this for you. Now, whether that surgeon had been the leading surgeon in those, neither here nor there. But the person who says, hey, let me do the job and then I'll show you I can do it. If it was your life on the line, suddenly you're like, I'm a lot less interested in that promotion suddenly because
That's
that's
right. That's right.
terrifying. So there's so much truth in what you're saying. So if we get to kind of like the tactical, you teach on tiny habits, right?
Yeah.
Little things. So what is some small or one small daily action that
Mhm.
actually starts to help move the needle for people who are trying to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, trying to become more confident? What are some of those things that you teach and recommend?
Well, I'm so glad you asked this, because this is, tiny habits has really been one of the secrets to the work that I do for myself and for others. Now, you have to remember that there is an anatomy of a habit. It's the ABC. You have an action, you have a behavior, and then you celebrate that behavior. You celebrate that you did it. And that celebration is what actually helps your brain to wire the new behavior, not the repetition, not how many times you're going to show up and do it. So I want you to think about the behavior you want to create, and then associate that with an identity. Maybe you want to be the person who is getting that promotion. Well, what does it take, right? What did the person, the future you did, and break that down into a small behavior. Maybe they were showing up a little bit earlier, or maybe they were asking more questions of their boss, or perhaps decided to, you know what, I want to learn about that other department so that I know more within the company. Whatever it is, Look at the identity of that future you that has what you want, and then ask the question, what is the smaller behavior? And then begin to practice that, and begin to practice it in a very simple way. Maybe you pair that new behavior with something else that you're doing. Hey, I'm going to check my email, but before I check my email, my new behavior is to kind of read up on that, or to ask, or to send the email or the Slack message to that other person and say, hey, how's it going? What are you guys working on? What does that look like? Whatever it is, just pick something very tiny. And after you do the behavior that is new to you, that you've paired with an existing action that you have, celebrate that you did it. Be the person that says, good job, Julie, you did that, right? Because your
Mhm.
brain is going to say, oh, I'm going to do that again. I felt good. So that's what I want to encourage you to do. And whether it's for your job or even for your well-being, pick an action. Find that identity you want to create for yourself and break it down into a manageable step, and show up 1% better every day.
The C in what you talked about, the celebrate, I think is so important here because
Yeah.
I'm sure you see this as well. I work with a lot of high performing men and women, and high
Mm-hmm.
performers are constantly raising the bar on themselves,
Mm-hmm.
right? So we think about future self does
Yep.
this. These are the habits we need to get there. We start doing them. We're like, okay, what's next?
I fall into that. That was my whole career.
Yep. And we're
Absolutely.
always
Yeah.
reaching, but we don't take that moment to celebrate,
Yeah.
to say 3 years ago, me would have
Yeah.
been shocked at what we're able to do.
100%. 100%. And I will tell you that for me, the shift, and I make my clients keep this, is we call it the evidence book, an evidence notebook, in which they, anytime that they accomplish something or they did something, just a small little something, that they're going to write the evidence that they're getting better at the thing. And maybe that is where you start. Start with that evidence notebook, keep a list, give yourself credit. Give yourself credit for the tiny things. Maybe you decided to go to bed a little earlier. Good job. Now I'm more refreshed for the morning. Find the little wins, because the wins will stack up. Stop looking at the big gap between where you are and where you want to be. Look at how far you've come and find those ways. Ask yourself, how did I become better this week? What did I do? Find that evidence. And there'll be days in which maybe everything will come crashing. And guess what? If you have that evidence book, you can open it and say, oh, yeah, but I did that and I did that. And it will bring you back to the moment and recalibrate you.
Yeah. I love that advice, Julie. I do that every morning. I write 3 accomplishments I had the day before. And it's just a journal, and it's not a large task. It's not a large time investment, but it's just for me because it's so easy to get caught up in all the
Yeah.
things we haven't done that I forget to be like, but yesterday I did this great thing, or this meeting went really well, or I
Hmm.
accomplished this, or I
Yeah.
signed a new client. And so I think keeping that gratitude journal, that accomplishment evidence book, I like that you called it that, I think is so impactful. And this kind of ties in. I'd love to get your thoughts on this. I have mixed feelings, I'll be honest. We have grown up in this boss babe hustle culture thing. I would argue pros and cons to both sides, right?
Indeed.
But I would love to hear your perspective on this hustle culture, both like within
Mm.
the context of the corporate workplace, but also as somebody who's built their own business and guides others to build their business. What are your thoughts on it? Because I feel like the narrative I see on social media is kind of switching. We're going from like hustle culture to like touch grass culture. So
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
curious where you kind of fall in that.
Such a good question, Kendall, because again, high achiever, right? I'm the person that wouldn't think twice about being rushed to the hospital and being texting her team while she's doing that, right? I know that hustle culture. The reality is that that hustle culture probably was not sustainable for me. Now, does that mean that you don't have to be dedicated, have a clear plan, that you don't have to, sometimes invest a little more time into something to have it pay off? Of course, but do it in a way that is sustainable.
Mm,
I have someone that I interviewed. I'd become friends with her. The first year of my podcast, I interviewed her. Her name is Katie Jeffcoat, and she has trademarked this phrase, and it's called intentional margin. And when I heard that,
Ooh.
I thought, holy camazel, like I needed this, right? And that means creating the margin that is intentionally put in there, right? So that you're not caught up, like if you or me, into this 24/7 work, that you create that margin. In my business, I love what I do. And again, I can come back to my desk after dinner and find something that then all of a sudden I'm in flow and I'm in here. And that can be that hustle culture. So the intentional margin, because I have that propensity, I don't necessarily work on Fridays anymore, right?
Mm.
So look at your life and create, because it's never going to be a balance, but blend your life in a way that allows you to show up on the times that you need to put more effort into something, do it. But if you know that you're going to do that, then make sure that you're building in that margin to recalibrate, that margin to step back and say, oh, what did I do? So I can celebrate that, right? Or really not even just celebrate it, but also say, okay, that didn't work. What do I need to do next? What's my next action? So I think that, we tend to want to go to extremes in our world. But sometimes if you just kind of find that middle ground, and yes, lean in as needed, as it's desired. Because for many entrepreneurs now, what I find is that they want the freedom and flexibility that having their own job will give them. But they end up working 24/7
Hmm.
because they never sit down and really say, what do I want? What does this mean? What does that look like? They're just showing up, right? Because the harder I work, the better it is. And then you forget why you started in the first place.
Yeah. I love that phrase, intentional margin. I always joke with my
Yeah,
husband,
well,
I'm like, why are
Katie
we
Jeffcoat, I have to give her credit. Go Google her, but yeah, and that is something that I teach to my clients when I'm hosting my yearly CEO retreat in a couple of weeks, and that's part of what we talk about. Before we start planning for our business, for the big things that we want to do, the first thing that we're going to talk about is, where are you getting space for yourself? Where are you spending the time to fill that cup, to drink your coffee, to step back and give yourself the room so that you can show up in a better way, whether it be for your family, for the company that you work for, or even, for the world. Because at the end of the day, people watch what we're doing. Right? I have a 13-year-old niece. She watches everything that I do.
Mhm.
I don't want her to burn out. I don't want her to be that person. So really creating that margin for myself is not only for myself, but for everybody else too.
Such good advice. I have two young kids, and I always joke with my husband. I'm like, "Why are we so busy?" And he's like, "Because you designed it that way." And my kids' favorite phrase to their teachers is like, "Well, my mom works a lot." Like the number of times I've
Mm,
heard that in parent-teacher conferences. And you're right, they're watching. Now, in some ways,
right.
I'm very proud of that they'll learn a good work
Mhm.
ethic. And then on the other side, I'm like, I should probably not work while they have fall break because we need some quality
Right.
time. So it's so good to be
Exactly.
intentional with that. You've
Mhm.
shared so many good pieces of advice, Julie, over today's episode. If somebody is listening and they're like, okay, I really want to start to be more confident, take control of my career, my progression, my business, what is one tactical piece of advice you would give them and say, hey, just start this tomorrow and we'll get going on the right foot?
Well, the first thing that I'm going to tell you is, whether you're starting it on your phone or in an actual notebook, go and start your evidence notebook,
Mhm.
or your to-do list, or whatever you want to call it. Do it in a fun way so that you can do it, and find the time, right? Don't say, oh, I'm going to do it every day. Find the time. Maybe it's when you put your feet on the ground in the morning, you grab your phone, and rather than checking social media, you write the 3 things that you want to give yourself credit for. Or again, pairing it to another existing behavior and saying, oh, good job, Julie, you did that, right? Do something small, start small, and then again, celebrate that you're doing it, but start it today and be really clear that it has to be paired with an existing behavior for you to be able to create that habit that will be with you and will reframe and redefine how you're showing up in this life confidently.
I love that. So, Julie, if people are listening to today's episode and they love it as much as I did, where should they go to find you, connect with you, learn from you? What's the best place?
Well, the best place is my website, which is goconfidentlycoaching.com. And there is a resource page in there. You can go in there. Most of my blogs and a lot of my great resources. I have a lot of free resources for individuals, whether they're building a career or in business. So go check it out, which is, again, goconfidentlycoaching.com.
Awesome. Well, we will be sure to tag that below in the show notes. Julie, thank you so much for coming on today's podcast episode. This was such a wonderful conversation. We'll definitely have to have you back again.
Thank you so much, Kendall. What a pleasure. And, I have to leave you and your listeners with my simple phrase, go confidently in the direction of your dreams.
And see, great job.